Today is a special day for me because exactly 1 year ago, I was on the stand being cross-examined in a trial on the issue of evolution in federal court in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And at that trial, we had to decide how were we going to bring this brand new evidence, because it was only a couple of weeks old at the time, into the courtroom in a way that would make this dramatic point with the judge. So I want to show you how we did this, as molecular evidence can be complicated. Let's take the hypothesis of common ancestry, namely the hypothesis that we share a common ancestor with chimps, orangs, gorillas, and the other great apes. Now, the fossil evidence for this is overwhelming. The anatomical evidence is good. The genetic evidence is extremely strong. But you know, there's something funny about it. We human beings have 46 chromosomes. All the other great apes have 48. Now, if you studied biology, and I think most of you have, you know that those 46 chromosomes we have are actually 23 pairs. Each of you got 23 from mom and 23 from dad. Baby chimp gets 24 pairs, 24 from mom, 24 from dad. So where's our missing chromosome pair? What happened to it? Is it possible that in the line that led to us, a pair of chromosomes just went missing, just got tossed out? The answer to that is no. We know way too much about primate genetics. The loss of a whole chromosome pair would be fatal. Be fatal in us, be fatal in gorilla, be fatal in the orangutan. You wouldn't even get past embryonic development if you lost all the genes on a whole chromosome. So the only possibility is that during the evolution of the line that led to us, one of the pairs of chromosomes in one of these pre-human ancestors must have gotten fused together, must have gotten stuck. So instead of having 24 pairs, 2 of them are stuck together in us. That's why we have 23. Now that, as it turns out, is a testable prediction, meaning that we ought to be able to look at the human genome and find that fused chromosome somewhere in our DNA. And if we can't find it, then the hypothesis of common ancestry might be wrong. So we have now go to the human genome, scan around, and see if we can find a chromosome that sort of shows the Scotch tape that holds together 2 pieces of other chromosomes. Let's see if we can do that. Now, how would we recognize that? Well, a biology student will tell you it's much easier than you might think, and here's why. Chromosomes have at their tips special DNA sequences called telomeres, only found at the tip. Near the center, they have special sequences called centromeres. If in the lineage leading to us, 2 primate chromosomes got stuck together, you know what you'd have? You'd have a chromosome with telomeres in the middle, where they don't belong. And you would also have a chromosome with 2 centromeres. So that's what we're looking for. So now we're going to look at the human genome and see, do we have a chromosome with telomeres in the center and 2 centromeres? And if we don't have it, this common ancestry thing might not be true. Well, it turns out we do. It's chromosome number 2. And this is a paper published last year in Nature showing that our human chromosome, let me read you from the paper, even though it's sort of technical. Chromosome 2 is unique to the human lineage of evolution. It emerged as a result of head-to-head fusion of 2 chromosomes that are still separate in other primates. We know the precise fusion site. It's at base 114,455,823. We know the exact base pair where the Scotch tape is hanging out. We've got the extra telomeres right here, and lo and behold, there are 2 centromeres. One of them is inactivated. The inactivated one corresponds to chimp chromosome 13. The active one corresponds to chimp chromosome 12. What does this mean? It means that we are descended from common ancestors with the other great apes that had 48 chromosomes, and we can see that lineage in chromosome number 2 where the fusion points come together. Is there any way to interpret this factual data as being evidence for an intelligent designer or the spontaneous creation of our species out of nothing? The answer to that is no, unless you're willing to think of a designer who wanted to fool us by giving us a chromosome that only looked like it had been descended by pasting these 2 guys together. And if you want to believe in a super force that is so deceptive, we'll go ahead and do it, but it certainly isn't a scientific point of view. Now, what I'd like to do right now is to take a break, answer a few questions, and after you guys get an opportunity to ask a few questions, basically I want to tell you about what happened in that courtroom in the trial that began a year ago yesterday. Thanks a lot, and I look forward to your questions. Don't forget, we have substantial bribes, and if no hands go up, I'm taking them all home. Okay, you sir, an orange shirt.
How does the evolutionist theory fit in with your religion?
Okay. You ask sort of the big question, which is, how does the evolutionist theory fit in with my religion? I think it fits in extremely well. And what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is to sort of defer that a little bit. And at the end of the lecture, if you're still interested in that, I'll show you another clip from the Stephen Colbert show in which he asked the religious question. But the way I would put it is this way. What evolution tells us is that our species has a natural origin. In other words, we come out of the same process of nature and everything else. Well, if you read Scripture, Genesis tells us you are made out of the dust of the earth. Well, that's what evolution tells us too. In other words, we have a lowly origin. And in the Western scriptural tradition, God or Allah reminds us of that constantly, that we are made out of the dust of the earth. That's what evolution says as well. Having a natural process to account for our origins, to me, is no more theologically threatening than realizing that the phases of the moon or the apparent movement of the sun are natural processes as well, even though in olden times people attributed those to the direct action of God. So I don't want to get into detailed theology, but in a general way, the problem, theologically, as far as I'm concerned, was solved by Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century. And Aquinas, who was one of the great Christian writers, his great insight was that God, if he exists, is the cause of causes. So showing that something has a natural cause doesn't take it out of the overall plan of that divine force. And to me, that's how evolution fits in. I can talk more about that later if you want. The right-hand corner, all the way over here. Yeah.
When you were talking about the chimpanzee, you said that their chromosomes that fused together was 12 and 13. But when you were talking about the humans, you said that the fused one was in 2. How did it skip up to number 2?
Well, the answer is, don't forget, we're the human beings, so we're the guys who do the numbering. Okay? And we number human chromosomes. Number 1's the biggest. Number 2 is a little smaller. Number 3, number 4. So we numbered them by size. We actually made a mistake. The smallest human chromosome is 21. But 22 looks smaller to the first people who did the numbering. So we got those numbers messed up. The primate chromosomes have been numbered exactly the same way. So chimp, and for that matter gorilla and orang chromosomes 12 and 13 are the 13th and the 12th smallest. When they were fused together, they became bigger, right? So that's why the number changed. And when this work was done, primate geneticists all of a sudden realized the chromosomes we've been calling in other primates, 12 and 13, don't correspond to 12 and 13 in human beings. They correspond to the 2 parts of number 2. So in the Chimpanzee Genome Project, geneticists have now renamed the chimpanzee chromosomes. So what used to be called 12 and 13 are now called 2A and 2B. That way they line up, because the genes line up in a dramatic fashion with the genes on human chromosome number 2. So retrospectively, after that paper, we've changed the numbering system. Other question? Right in the back.